Hi, and welcome back to Chef Hacker Kitchen. Today we're going to look at an alternative to Thanksgiving Day turkey. Maybe you're hosting Friendsgiving and all your friends and family are, they've already had their fill of turkey. Or maybe you're hosting Thanksgiving Day and you just don't want to serve turkey this year. Well, normally that would leave you to serve something like ham or maybe even a crown roast of pork. Well, with ham is pretty good, but one ham just tastes as good as the next. Nothing special about that. And a crown roast of pork, they're getting kind of hard to find. You typically have to order them ahead of time from your supermarket or from your butcher. They're kind of hard to cook. And they're kind of hard to serve. You have to, cut it at the table typically. So you get that wonderful presentation that a crown roast of pork gives you. The other good thing about crown roast of pork is that pork and dressing are a perfect substitute because they go so well with all the other traditional Thanksgiving Day side dishes like potatoes, turnips, green bean casserole, whatever. So that's where today's dish comes in. It's going to be pork chops stuffed with dressing. Let's get to it. Okay, so what do we need? We need, of course, thick cut pork chops. For this dish, I like to use the ones that have the tenderloin attached, but you don't need to, just as long as they're about an inch or an inch and a quarter thick. We'll need some chicken stock for some of the gravy that we're going to make. It'll be a pan gravy, so we're going to thicken it with a mixture of cornstarch, flour, and some white wine. You could also use stock in there or even water. We're going to have salt and pepper. We're going to have a little bit of oil. That's a neutral flavored oil. That's going to be to lubricate the pan before we put the pork chops in it. And then we're going to use the dressing. This is the same dressing that I make for turkey or for any kind of a roast. What I did do is add some chopped apples to the recipe you could find over at Chef Hacker Kitchen website or YouTube page. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pork chops and we're going to make a pocket in them so that we have a place to put the stuffing. So I'm going to go to on the loin side, not on the tenderloin side, the larger of the two. And I'm going to take a pointed knife and I'm going to go ahead and split about halfway between the two edges of the chop. And I'm going to cut right down to the bone, of course being very careful not to hit my fingers, and to kind of make sure that I sort of have a smaller opening than I do of a pocket. So I'll use the knife to cut open the pocket. Again, watch your hands on this, and that'll do it for that. I'll do the same thing to this other one. I'll go ahead and cut in and then make my pocket. Okay, and now we are ready to stuff the pork chops. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and get our dressing prepared to go in the chops. It takes about a quarter of a cup, maybe a little more than a quarter of a cup of dressing for each pork chop, depending on how big your pork chop is. So we're going to go with quarter cup for this. And now we're going to take our pork chop. We're going to open up that pocket that we created earlier. So we're going to take it and we're going to push that stuffing into that pork chop. And you really do kind of have to push it in there because you kind of want the pork chop to stretch out quite a bit. Now when you cook this, some of that dressing is going to just expand and flow out, and it just gets nice and brown and it's so flavorful. Alright, so that's about what that's going to look like. Do our second one. Alright, so next we're going to take salt and pepper And we're going to season the top of the pork. The dressing has plenty of seasoning already, but I like to just put a bit of salt and pepper on the pork itself. Okay. All right, so I put a cast iron pan in the oven because I want to preheat it a little bit before I put the pork chops in the pan. And I've got my oil here, about a tablespoon's worth, and I'm just going to brush it on the bottom of the pan. You don't need to use a cast iron pan. Any pan will work as long as you're able to put it both in the oven and on the stove, because we're going to use this pan and the drippings that come from it to make our gravy later. So I'll go ahead and put my pork chops in the pan. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in the oven. It's preheated to 400 degrees. And we're going to put that in for about 20 to 30 minutes. I'll set it for 20 and I'll check it. We're looking for an internal temperature of 145 degrees. Okay. All right, so it's been 20 minutes at 400. I'm going to check this near the bone. And it looks like we're coming in about 130. So that means it needs a few more minutes. That was at 20, so we're going to give it 10 more. All right, 10 more minutes have passed. Let's see what we got here. Once again, I'll go near the bone. See what we got. Yep, okay. Topping out at about 143, so it should coast up the rest of the way. Now, you see how the dressing has gotten nice and brown and crisp. Lovely. Now, if you're going to do it this way, please be careful. The pan is very hot, of course. It just came out of the oven. Whoops. And you need to remember so that you don't grab it without a towel. I'm going to put this over a medium heat. There's a bunch of fond in the bottom. We're going to deglaze it with our stock. You can use water, but stock would be better. Chicken stock, vegetable stock, whatever you prefer. Now, while that's coming back to a boil, I'm going to remove this to the countertop, and I'm going to cover it with some foil. Has a nice brown color from the chopped drippings. Now, this is going to be kind of a rustic gravy, thickened with starch, and I do not intend to strain it. If you wanted it to be more elegant, you could just reduce it till it got to the desired thickness, and then you could strain it. Then it would be a more elegant kind of a sauce, but I'm looking for something a little bit more rustic today. Again, this is a mixture of 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of white flour, and 2 tablespoons of white wine. It's a dry wine. And you need to mix it really well, otherwise it'll be really rustic, because it'll be a lumpy gravy if you don't. Okay, so here we go. Done. All right, let's plate this out. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of extra dressing on the plate, just like that. Going to take a tiny bit of our thickened gravy and put it down. Maybe a little more gravy on that. Yep, perfect. And I'll take our chop, put it sort of halfway on that. I'm serving this tonight with some fresh mixed vegetables, but as I said, it goes wonderfully with any sort of holiday accompaniment you'd like to include. And I'm going to put just a spot of gravy on top. So there you are, easily portioned, 1 pork chop per person. You could make as many or as few as you have guests. And then I would always add a few extra because chances are somebody's going to want seconds of this. Okay, if you enjoyed this, I hope you'll hit the like button, and why not subscribe so you always know when we make a new video. And that really helps us to grow. We will see you next time in Chef Hacker's Kitchen.